من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها المدثر قم فأنذر وربك فكبر وثيابك فطهر والرجز فاهجر ولا تمنن تستكثر ولربك فاصبر. فإذا نقر في الناقور فذلك يومئذ يوم عسير على الكافرين غير يسير. ذرني ومن خلقت وحيدا وجعلت له مالا ممدودا وبنين شهودا ومهدت له تمهيدا ثم يطمع أن أزيد كلا إنه كان لآياتنا عنيدا سأرهقه صعودا إنه فكر وقدر فقتل كيف قدر ثم قتل كيف قدر ثم نظر ثم عبس وبسر ثم أدبر واستكبر فقال إن هذا إلا سحر يؤثر إن هذا إلا قول البشر سأصليه سقر وما أدراك ما سقر لا تبقي ولا تذر لواحة للبشر عليها 19 وما جعلنا أصحاب النار إلا ملائكة وما جعلنا عدتهم إلا فتنة للذين كفروا ليستيقن الذين أوتوا الكتاب ويزداد الذين آمنوا إيمانا ولا يرتاب الذين أوتوا الكتاب والمؤمنون وليقول الذين في قلوبهم مرض والكافرون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا كذلك يضل الله من يشاء ويهدي من يشاء وما يعلم جنود ربك إلا هو وما هي إلا ذكرى للبشر. كلا والقمر والليل إذ أدبر والصبح إذا أسفر إنها لإحدى الكبر نذيرا للبشر لمن شاء منكم أن يتقدم أو يتأخر كل نفس بما كسبت رهينة إلا أصحاب اليمين في جنات يتساءلون عن المجرمين ما سلككم في سقر قالوا لم نك من المصلين ولم نك نطعم المسكين وكنا نخوض مع الخائضين وكنا نكذب بيوم الدين حتى أتانا اليقين فما تنفعهم شفاعة الشافعين فما لهم عن التذكرة معرضين كأنهم حمر مستنفرة فرت من قسورة بل يريد كل امرئ منهم أن يؤتى صحفا منشرة كلا بل لا يخافون الآخرة كلا إنه تذكرة فمن شاء ذكره وما يذكرون إلا أن يشاء الله هو أهل التقوى وأهل المغفرة صدق الله العلي العظيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله أشهد أن عليًا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل هيا على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وأن عليا ولي الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة هيا على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح هيا على خير عمل هيا على خير عمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سميع له لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوتي أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سميع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. أستغفر الله من كل ذنب وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم واحشرنا معهم ولعن أعداءهم. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. محمد وعجل فرجهم. لا إله إلا الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وأن عليا حجة الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج والعافية والنصر واجعلنا من خير أعوانه وأنصاره وشيعه والمستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع له لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. استغفر الله من كل ذنب وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع له لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. أستغفر الله من كل ذنب وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سمع على لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم واحشرنا معهم ولعن أعداءهم. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد آل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل. لا إله إلا الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. کر رہا ہے یہ راوی بیاں کربلا، اس نے عاشور کی شب کا منظر لکھا، سینہ شاہ پابند شاہ ہدا اور شبیر کہتے تھے یہ بارہا، ہم کو جانا ہے کل کرنے وعدہ وفا، تم پہ آ جائے گا صبر کا مرحلہ، بات ساری سکینہ نے شہ کی سنی، اور جواباً وہ بس اتنا کہتی رہی، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا. بول شبیر میری نور نظر، تم کو کرنا ہے اب شام تک کا سفر، تم کو قیدی بنائیں گے اب اہل شر، بولی شہزادی مجھ کو نہیں کوئی ڈر، تم کہو تم سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا. شاہ کہنے لگے اے میری لاڈلی، تم پہ آئے گی اب شام غم کی گھڑی، آگے دامن میں ہوگی تمہاری لگی، بولی وہ فکر مجھ کو نہیں ہے کوئی، میرا دامن بجھانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا. مضطرب دل سے کہنے لگے شاہدی، تیری قسمت میں بیٹا سکون اب نہیں، اب تماچے لگائے گا شمرے لائی، سن کے یہ بات کہنے لگی وہ ہنسی، شمر سے تم بچانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا۔ پھر کیا شہن بیٹی سے کچھ یوں سخن، سب حرم ہوں گے اب تو اسیر مہن، تیرے ہاتھوں میں بھی آ بندھے گی رسن، بولیے بات سن کے اتشنا دہن، تم گلے سے لگانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا۔ رو کے شبیر نے اس کے بوسے لیے، بولے رخسار بھی سو، بولے رخسار بھی ہوں گے زخمی تیرے، تیرے روزے کے شہزادی دن آ گئے، بولی تم کیسے دیکھو گے روتے ہوئے، ہاں مجھے چپ کرانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا۔ لکھ کے سلمان دل پھٹ رہا ہے میرا، زین جب شاہ والا نے رو کر کہا، اب تو زندان مرکز بندھے گا تیرا، بیٹی صابر کی بھی بیٹی وہ صابرہ، میرا لاشا اٹھانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا، اچھا بابا سلانے تو آؤ گے نا، روز چہرہ دکھانے تو آؤ گے نا۔ نظر بی بی سکینہ سلام اللہ علیہا۔
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔
ہائے اے رونے والو ہے یہ روایات میں لکھا، جس دم قیام کوفے میں مختار نے کیا، جو بھی تھے قاتلان شہیدان نے کربلا، ارے ان میں سے کوئی جب بھی گرفتار ہوتا تھا، حکم امیر پر وہ ستم جب سناتا تھا، مختار سر کو پیٹ کے بس روتا جاتا تھا۔ ہائے ایک روز تھا یہ کوفے کے دربار کا سما، ابن نمیر اپنے ستم کرتا تھا بیان، توڑی تھی میں نے سینہ اکبر میں خود سے نہ، اٹھتا تھا شور خیموں سے، مارا گیا جوان، ماں جیتے جی گزر گئی، زینب بھی مر گئی، ایک برچھی میرے کتنے جگر پار کر گئی، ایک روز کر کے لایا گیا حرملہ اسیر، بولا وہ رن میں نے چلائے تھے 3 تیر، اس وقت پہلا تیر چلایا تھا اے امیر، بھر کر چلا جو مشق کو مظلوم کا سفیر، مشکیزے سے جو تیر میرا پار ہو گیا، ایسا لگا کہ قتل علمدار ہو گیا، بولا لئیں یہ کرب کا ہے دوسرا مقام، لائے جو اپنی گود میں بے شیر کو امام، سوکھی زباں پھراتا تھا ہونٹوں پہ تشنہ کام، یوں قطع ابن زہرا کا میں نے کیا کلام، ہل گیا لحد میں جگر بو تراب کا، اور مقتل میں نہر ہو گیا بچہ رباب کا، دربار میں یہ سن کے قیامت کا تھا سما، اور پیر و جوان روتے تھے لے لے کے ہچکیاں، بولا یہ حرملہ ابھی باقی ہے داستاں، جس دم تیرا حسین تھا تیروں کے درمیان، وہ تیر آخری تھا جو میں نے چلایا تھا، ارے اس تیر نے حسین کو زین سے گرایا تھا، ہاں پھر شوروا حسین کا اٹھتا تھا بار بار، جب قید کر کے لایا گیا شمر بدشیار، بولا وہ میرے ہاتھ ہاتھ میں خنجر تھا تیز دھار، جس سے کیے حسین کی گردن پہ تیرا وار۔ خنجر رواں تھا حلق پہ ابن بطول کے، دل کٹ رہے تھے ساتھ میں آل رسول کے۔ ہائے اب اس کے بعد میر تکلم بیاں ہو کیا، اے پرصدارو سوچنا دل میں کبھی ذرا، کیوں اتنا وقت قاتل شبیر کو لگا، کس واسطے حسین کا کٹتا نہ تھا گلا۔ محشر میں یہ کھلے گا ستم کائنات پر، خنجر کے کچھ نشان ہیں زہرا کے ہاتھ پر۔ الفاتحہ۔
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد۔
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, respected elders, dearest brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum jami wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Fatiha is requested for all marhumin listed on the screen, as well as all other marhumin. Surah Mubarak al-Fatiha. Dua Shfa Maries is requested for all those in need here and elsewhere, as well as those listed on the screen. Let us recite together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. Ya Allah. Once again, a kind reminder that the Muharram and Safar Fund is still open, and we're still about 35% short of the target. Please see any member of the finance team to donate, or you may also donate using the QR code currently displayed on the screen. At this time, let us invite Sayyid Hasan Rizvi to please come forward for tonight's Majlis. Wa Muhammad wa al-Muhammad Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجه.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight we will wrap up and inshallah finish the commentary, tafsir on the khutbah given in Kufa by Kulthum bint Ali. Where we left off, as she started mentioning a few different qualities and asking in the form of rhetorical questions of, why have you done this? Why have you done this? And do you not recognize which type of property you've stolen, which blood you've spilled, all of these lines? She reaches one line where she says, وَأَيِّ سِبْيَتِي or سِبْيَةٍ سَلَبْتُمُوهَا. And do you know, are you aware of which young child and young children that you have cause to mourn and grieve? So the word she uses here is sibya, right? A normal translation of this will just be child, right? Over here it matters because, in Arabic, when you want to refer to somebody of a certain age, just like to some degree in English, you can say infant, you can say toddler, right? You can say young adult, adolescent, teenager, things like that. So in Arabic, just like most languages, the same thing is there too. So the word that she's choosing specifically is sibya. And sibya denotes a very, very young child. Normally it's used for infants. And in the Quran it's used like that as well. When you look in Surah Maryam, Surah 19, Ayah 29, where Allah says there, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, فَأَشَارَتْ إِلَيْهِ. Right, so Bibi Maryam points to the young Nabi Isa, the baby, Nabi Isa. قَالُوا كَيْفَ نُكَلِّمُ مَنْ كَانَ فِي الْمَهْدِ الصَّبِيًّا. And right, this is the whole contention. When she's taken her vow of silence, she's not allowed to speak. She comes back with the child, and they're like, what's going on? She pointed to this newborn child, Nabi Isa, and they're wondering how we're going to speak to him, right? And they say, how can we speak to somebody, fi mahdi sabiya, who's in a cradle, sabiya, who's this young little newborn child. So the same way the Quran is using it, that this is a young child. So the way that she's also using the same language is that she's not talking about children who are aware, older children. She's talking about the fact that we are addressing these young infant newborn children that are being treated like this. And then specifically, what is she saying here? That salabtumuha, that you have done salb of them. Now salb is a verb and a word that most of us are familiar with too. There are many different ways to translate it. Sometimes salb means to steal. Sometimes it means, in a military context, to take and disarm somebody and to steal their armaments or to steal their clothing, like from a fallen enemy. Sometimes it means to withhold, deny, or deprive somebody of something. And in general, one of the meanings that most likely is being used here, because all these other meanings she's sort of addressed in other ways, that you've robbed us and done all this. So it's doubtful that she would use this, especially when she's talking about young children, right? So most likely she's using the fourth meaning, which that salb has this meaning of being in mourning, causing somebody to go into aza and causing them to mourn. And interesting, from salb you get the word silab and sulab, which means it actually describes clothes that are designed for mourning, right? Black, longer clothing that's meant for mourning. So it's still used in Arabic like that. So she's basically saying that you have taken these young children and you've put them into grief. You've put them into the stage of mourning. Now, the way we can kind of connect all these meanings in a way that you and I would understand the word and the meaning of salb, where we've heard it before, is when we talk about the sifat of Allah, right? There's two different categories of sifat, right? There's sifat thubutiyya and sifat salbiyya, right? Thubutiyya are what? These sort of positive names where we're saying, He is ar-Razaq, He is this, He is that, etc. When you do salbiyya, it's negative qualities, meaning that Allah does not have this, He does not have this, right? So salb here means negation. Even in modern Arabic, salb is used for when you subtract something, when you have a minus sign, or in a logical statement, when you want to negate something, you say the same thing. You're doing salb of it, you're negating something. And it's even used like that in Farsi right now. So in one sense, what she perhaps is trying to say is that you have completely negated and deprived these children of a future. These young, newborn children, you have completely erased their future. And as we talked about before, especially given that very strong patriarchal society, although the same thing would exist over here, that when a father is taken away from a household, what are young children like that going to do? She's already talked about how the women have been taken prisoner and they've been paraded around as if they're slaves. And now she's saying, and look what you've done to these young newborn children as well. You've put them in the state of mourning. You've dressed them as if they've been negated. Their whole life, their whole future, their whole legacy now is gone. Right? Because their main patriarch, their protector, their father, their brothers, they're all gone. It's like, this is what you have done to them. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You see the same concept. We all know this to be true as well. Every place we go, obviously this community, any other place that I've gone, every community, if you ask what is their main concern, they say the same thing. It's the youth, the kids. That's what everybody says, right? As if they care about the seniors too, but like our main concern is obviously the youth. That's what we care about. And everybody knows that, both sides. There is a constant battle and a struggle for the hearts and minds of young kids, everywhere. Why do you think that right now, the main sort of battle that's happening out there in society is happening on social media or happening in cartoons and young kids' books? Why? Because they know that the minds are impressionable. If you put out a young kids' book where a child is trying to figure out, am I a boy, am I a girl, am I a hippo, am I not, what am I? Then that's obviously going to cause confusions to a young kid, right? So they're doing this on purpose, and they do these things in the month of June, whatever it is, because they know that they won't understand this. And they are banking on the fact, and they're hoping that the father and the mother, if the parents are both present, that the community have been done salb, they've been negated and they've been cut out. Because if you do that, and if you look into the history of the modern education system, social media, all these TV shows, toys, this whole marketing system has been designed to try to push away, and sometimes parents do that on their own as well, that when that gap and that vacuum is there, then we'll come in and we'll fill that. And we have the same thing in our riwayat as well, this famous narration from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa where he's reported to have said that you must do tarbiyah of your children, because if you don't, then the kuffar will come and do it for you. Somebody's going to do tarbiyah. You and I can do it, right, in the household as parents. The extended family, right, grandparents, uncles, aunts, everybody else, cousins, they hopefully are on the same page, they also get involved. As a community, we are also involved in making sure we're on the same page, we're growing together, right? That's the idea. When these things are cut out and they're negated and everybody's in this mode of, mind your own business, right? Who are you to tell me what to do? How can you judge me, etc.? This individualistic sort of pattern that's been there. What they're doing is trying to negate and cut out any well-wisher from the community, any well-wisher in the household. And that child, young child, older children, they won't know any better. So everybody knows, whether it's Muslims, Islam knew this from the beginning, and today they know the exact same thing too. They've taken their mind, they've stopped this focus on constant marketing to people who are older, and now they focused on kids, right? The vast majority of things you'll see, especially during the day, are kids' toys marketing and things like that, because they know that they're impressionable, right? Things like that. So we have to be very, very careful of that same thing too, that we don't want our legacy of taking the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt and having it negated by people from the outside. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. After all of these lines, then she takes a different direction. And she goes back to the idea of mentioning the fact that they have killed Imam Hussein, but she says it in a different way. She says, قَتَلْتُمْ خَيْرَ الرِّجَالَاتِ بَعْدَ النَّبِيِّ, that you've killed the best of men after the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. Now, we as Shias might read something like this and say, hold on, why is she saying that the best man, the best person after Rasulullah is Imam Hussein? Like, it seems a little strange, right? Like, I'm sure you're just like mine, reading this, your Shia trigger got hit, and you're like, hold on, what about Imam Ali? Like, where did he go? Like, isn't he the best after the Prophet? And then Imam Hasan, then, like, isn't there some sort of thing? And usually we have that in a riwayah too, right? After the Prophet, then Imam Ali. He's the father of all the other members of the Ahlul Bayt, all the other Imams. And then after that, all the Imams are, in a sense, equal. Like, okay, why is she describing it like that? Well, there's a few possible reasons. And we already kind of know this too. We just have to kind of spell it outside so it's obvious, more obvious to us. The first is, we already know the attitude of the worst type of Ahl Kufa towards Imam Ali alayhi salam, because they've said it themselves on the battlefield. When Imam Hussein is with them on Ashura, when he's by himself out there in the battlefield, and he's asking them, don't you know who I am? Don't you know my grandfather? Don't you know my mother? Don't you know this and that? All this, then why are you doing this? They said, yes, we know who you are. We know your grandfather. We know all this. Then why are you doing it? He said, because we have bughd and we hate your father. We hate Ali ibn Abi Talib. They said it clearly. Many of them, regardless of their Islamic proclivities, their belief in the Quran, the Prophet, all of that, it went down the drain because of that tribalistic hate that they had. Because they know that the father of Imam Hussein, Imam Ali, was in the battlefield killing many of those fathers and ancestors of those people in Kufa right now. Right? Because many of their ancestors or fathers were still kuffar, or maybe they were khawarij, or maybe there was something else. And Imam Ali had, he had what do we say? He had a lot of red in his ledger, right? He took out a lot of munafiqun, a lot of kuffar. That's what he did, right? He was the first and foremost in the battlefield. So a lot of these people never forgot it. Even though they became Muslim, they had that somewhere in their heart. The hate, the spite that they had for Imam Ali trumped everything else, unfortunately. And sometimes that's what happens to people. They let their emotions get the best of them, and whatever clear thing is there in Islam doesn't matter anymore. That becomes secondary. My ego, my emotions, my hatred, or my love for something else will take over that. And that's what happened to them. So that's one reason why it wouldn't make sense for her to say that the best person after Rasulullah is Ali, and then after that Hussein. Because she doesn't maybe want to mention him to these kind of individuals, possibly. That's one reason. Another reason, even if it wasn't the type of Kufan who, let's say, had a family member that was killed by Imam Ali, maybe they didn't have any hate, but maybe they just were kind of apathetic. They lived in Kufa maybe while Imam Ali was the Khalifa, and he was like, yeah, he was a Khalifa, and that's it. Right? They'd had no positive, no negative thing. Yeah, he was a Khalifa, and that's it. It's fine. Just an average person. Nothing so super great about him. Or, hey, all the Khulafa were Rashidun. What does it matter? Right? Some people, a lot of people in Kufa were like that too. Right? We've talked about the different groups that existed in Kufa and this misconception that the vast majority were Shia. That's not the case at all. Right? The vast majority were probably something like this, or very close to the majority. People were just like living their life daily as a Muslim. Who's the Khalifa now? This guy? Okay, whatever. All I care about is going out, getting food, getting money, coming back. That's it. So a lot of them, if she had said the best person after Rasulullah is Ali, they would have been like, really? Like, why? It wouldn't have really clicked and really done anything for them. So that's another possibility. And the third is most likely because after all of that kind of hatred and spite or their apathy, she had to at least say, okay, what bit of love do they still have left? What sort of ta'zeem are they doing? Who do they still revere? And obviously for every Muslim, there's no way you can do salb and negate Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The same tactic that Imam Hussein alayhi salam uses in Karbala, right? He wants to give these people the memory of Rasulullah, so he sends Ali Akbar to give adhan, go out in the battlefield. Maybe they'll think about and they'll remember the personality, the voice, the akhlaq of Rasulullah, and maybe they'll change their minds. Kulthum's like, maybe if I remind them about Rasulullah, maybe they'll think about it too. Maybe they'll remember all of these narrations over and over again, like Husaynun minni wa ana min Husayn. Maybe this will come to their mind and they'll like, why did we do something like this? Right? So that's what she's probably trying to tap into over there. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And you find that normally as I don't want to say a tactic or a strategy, I guess strategy or a technique, amongst people whenever they have a disagreement about some principle in Islam, right? You can argue about, let's say, Islamic history to some degree. You can argue about, let's say, certain principles and discussions about the Ahlul Bayt. But among Muslims, say, hold on, if we have clear things that are even in other books as well, like the books of Ahlul Sunnah, these are clear words from the Prophet, what are you going to do with something like that? Right? With Husaynun minni wa ana min Husayn, right? What do you do with something like that? And even those who are, let's say, are these kind of ultra-progressives or whatever you want to call them, ultra-liberals, say, look, what do you do when it comes to the personality of Rasulullah? If you're going to say that so-and-so actions right now are bad and deplorable or reprehensible, humans have evolved, like, okay, if you're saying that we have better morality right now, then what does that tell you, or what are you trying to say about the akhlaq of Rasulullah then? If you're saying so-and-so action is bad, we know that right now because we've evolved, sure, then what are you indirectly saying about the akhlaq and morality of Rasulullah if he was doing those same things? Like if you have a problem with polygamy right now, sure, then you must have a problem with the Prophet then too. Unless you want to say, no, but he's an exception. Okay. Then you might have a problem with, let's say, slavery. Okay, fine. What about Rasulullah? Okay. One by one, whatever issues that type of group wants to give, say, okay, did Rasulullah do that or not? And if he did, then what you're saying indirectly was, na'udhu billah, Rasulullah was not the most akhlaqi person so far. That somehow, na'udhu billah, that we have become more moral and more righteous than him. Which is impossible, right? لَقَدْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Allah says very clearly that this is the highest role model that you're going to get. So again, little by little, their pegs, the little things that they built up start crumbling down. Right? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. After this, she says, that you've killed the best of men after the Nabi, وَنُزِعَتْ الرَّحْمَةِ مِنْ قُلُوبِكُمْ. That rahmah has left and disappeared and been erased from your qulub, from your hearts. That there's nothing left there. She uses this verb nuzi'at, right? Nazar can mean when something is stripped, when something is withdrawn, extracted, or torn out. And what the ulama of lugha and language say, and linguistics say, is that when this verb normally is used, the idea is whatever quality has been taken away is not going to come back. When something has been taken and, it was there, now it's been taken, like you're not going to get it back after this. Right? Sometimes this is what happens with children, right? You offer them, like, here, you have this, but here's some rules that go along with it. You can have this, you can play with this, you can do this, as long as you follow the rules. If not, I'm going to take it and you're not going to get it back anymore. So, the general idea is, look, rahmah is something that's put in every single human being's heart. Rahmah's in there. You perform certain actions, that rahmah is going to be removed from you. You'll have none of this stuff left there. Now, an immediate sort of question would be like, hold on, how can that be possible? Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Sabaqat Rahmatuhu Ghadaba. Allah is all love, all mercy, all this. What do you mean mercy is being removed from somebody's heart? Like, for us, with again, more of a kind of loving conception of Allah, how does something like that work? You say, no, how can you remove somebody's mercy? That seems unjust, unfair, unloving. Well, how do we figure something like that out? Well, there are some riwayat, and there's some very simple ways that we can understand this. We'll look at a few riwayat from Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. He's reported to have said, Man lam taskun ar-rahma qalba. Whoever has not allowed for rahmah and love to have this residence in their heart, to stick in their heart, qalla liqa'uha lahu 'inda hajati. That then whenever he needs that same rahmah, whenever he has a hajat, he has a need, then it'll be reduced. So if that person doesn't have any rahmah expressing out and coming out from him, then anytime that person needs it too, it's not going to come back to. Or in many other riwayat, he said the same thing, but in shorter words. Man taraham ruhim. Whoever shows rahmah, they get rahmah in turn. You show love and mercy, you get the same thing back. But the other side too, man lam yarham, whoever doesn't show this rahmah to others, lam yurham, then they're not going to get that rahmah in turn as well too. Okay? You know how these kind of new age spiritualists say, you send out your positive vibes, your positive energy to the universe, and the universe will sing back to you and it'll put that positive energy back your way? Well, it's like that, except we know what we're talking about here. It's like actually something real, not that. Maybe that's what they're referring to, but they just don't know the actual words, right? But that's the idea. Is when a person is manifesting these names of Allah, when you're saying, yeah, I am showing love and compassion and mercy to all creation, to whatever capacity I can in the way that they deserve, then the same thing is going to come back to me. That same face of Allah that I manifest turns back to us too. But the other way too, if we don't manifest those names of Allah, we don't show mercy, Allah says, okay, then I'm actually, that name, that wajh of Allah turns away from you as well too. You want to be harsh? Then Allah says, I can be harsh too. That's one of my names too. I can be shadidul iqab. I can be pure justice if you want, if that's what you're actually looking for, right? And somebody might say, well, how does this stuff actually happen though? How can somebody get to such a degree? Like this seems like it doesn't make any sense. Well, If we've been paying attention every Thursday night, then we're reciting these lines over and over again in Dua Kumel. We're saying all this stuff over and over again that no, this is something that's possible, right? Once we get to, it's right in the beginning. Allahumma ghfir li adh-dhunub allati tahta kull isam. Allah, cover me or protect me from those sins, or forgive me from those dhunub and those sins, which will destroy my isam. Whatever force field or shield, protection, isma that you have given to me, Allah, there's certain sins that are going to break that. I need you to protect me from that. I don't want those sins to come on me. Or if they do, then I need to be forgiven for that. I need that force field to stay intact. Allahumma ghfir li adh-dhunub allati tunzilul niqam. Protect me, forgive me for those sins, those dhunub, that Marsiya and Guna, that will draw down these adversities and these difficulties. Things will get worse based on certain sins that we commit as well. Allahumma ghfir li adh-dhunub allati tughayyirul ni'am. There can be taghyir and changes in our ni'mat that we get too from Allah. You do certain dhan, we're saying, Allah, there are certain things that I might do, certain guna, sin and ma'asiyah, that might alter and completely change the ni'mah that you were originally giving to me. Allahumma ghfir li adh-dhunub allati tahbasu ad-du'a. There might be certain things that do habs of dua. Certain dhunub that habs literally means to imprison something, to capture it, to just kind of like stranglehold it. Like there's certain things that might stop my dua from even going out. You're literally like, choking yourself. You won't be able to speak to Allah anymore. There's no point because certain dhanb, certain gunah, certain masya, that's the effect that it has. Allahumma ghfir li adh-dhunub allati taqtu'u ar-raja. There are certain sins, guna and ma'asiyah that will do qat' and cut off all the raja and hope that a person has. Not that Allah is saying that you shouldn't have hope. He's saying that no, I'm going to see that there's no hope left because I've done certain sins and that'll lead me to more despair. Because I've done certain sins that will reduce the rahmah that's in my heart, and I'll think that, there's no mercy left for me. Right? Like sometimes, hopefully it doesn't happen to us, but once in a while we have those lows. We've been performing maybe a sin once, and it's a big one, and that weighs down on us. And we're like, how am I actually going to get back to Allah after this? We're saying, Allah, I want to be wiped out from that kind of zan, that kind of sin that's going to put me in that mindset where I'm going to think that, I'm cut off from your hope and your mercy now. I don't want that. Allahumma ghfir li adh-dhunub allati tunzilul bala. Keep me away, protect me, forgive me from any of the sin, guna and ma'asiyah that is going to do inzal and send down what? Bala. All of the stuff you put together, right? Cutting off hopes, sending down bala, cutting off and changing our ni'mat that we get, putting down adversities, destroying this ismat and force field that's there. What is that? Allah just started in the beginning saying, look, my mercy wasi'at kulla shay. That's what we're calling to Allah from. And he's saying, look, but there are ways you might lose this stuff too. Right in the beginning of Dua Kumel, right? The rest of the stuff, I know maybe we lose our focus and concentration after that. Just that first page, if we could focus on that, then you'd see how much more of an effect it should have on our hearts, inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. After this, she mentions two ayat of the Quran. She says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, this is Surah Ma'idah, Surah 5, Ayah 56. Inna Hizballah humul ghalibun. That the party, the army, the party of Allah, humul ghalibun. They're the ones who dominate, they're the ones who are going to win. And then she says the opposite, which comes in Surah al-Mujadila, Surah 58, Ayah 19. Wa hizba shaitan humul khasirun. And the party and the followers, or the army of shaitan, they're khasirun, they're in khusran. They're losers. They're going to lose. You follow Allah, it's a simple formula. You follow Allah, you win. You follow shaitan, you lose. Very simple. But perhaps the way and the reason why she's kind of mentioning it in these very two sort of dual extremes is because that's the sort of nature and things that we see all throughout Islamic theology. Let me explain a little bit, if you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Many riwayat talk about this idea that Islam is nothing but hub and bughd. It's just love and hate. These two sort of extreme ideas. Love in the sense of qurb, being near and getting closer to something. And hate meaning distancing, keeping away, being aloof, abstaining from something else. That's all. And some people will go to either of these extremes nowadays, right? Either they take the love part and toss away the hate, or they go to this extreme hate side and they toss away the love. We say, look, even in our furu' ad-din, we have these two concepts that are there too, right? Tawalli and tabarri. Tawalli coming from wilaya or wala, to follow in the footsteps, to try to connect ourselves, to get closer to the Ahlul Bayt, right? And tabarri, to do bara'at, to keep away from things, to distance, in a sense to hate, right? Surah Bara'a is the other name for Surah Tawbah, where even there Allah says, I'm not even going to use Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim there, right? The one surah out of all 114, only one surah there where like, no, there's no Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim over here. You can get to a certain stage where there is no love and mercy and compassion anymore. When you break certain things, when you go beyond certain limits, that love, compassion, and mercy, no, that's it, it's gone. So it's not just all love and this hippie Islam all the time. That's not the way it works. There are certain individuals where they break. I mean, look, to break that is very, very difficult. These are people who are munafiqun, who are fasiqun, who are out there. In the Quran, it's described as the people who have gone and killed or helped to kill the anbiya and the mursaleen, the prophets, the messengers. And in this sense, it's those who went out and killed the Ahlul Bayt, or supported killing of the Ahlul Bayt, or stayed silent and were neutral during the killings of the Ahlul Bayt. Like the same thing over here. In a sense, Kulthum, just like the sort of Quranic ideology is there, is look, you have to pick a side. Either you're with Allah or you're against Him. You're with Allah, you're with Shaitan. There is no sort of in-between here. Now, yes, the gray area happens where sometimes we all claim we're with Allah. We have our ups and downs. Like, I want to be closer to Allah, I want to do a better job, but maybe my practice level is not good. Okay, we don't have to say that we're in the party of Shaitan there. There's some gray areas, there's levels to climb and rise there. But for certain things, there are clear categories, clear ways we can delineate these things. And the way that we can see this is through various ziyarat. It's there too, right? Inni silmun liman salamukum. You're at peace with them, we're at peace with you too. What? Harbun liman harbukum. It's not just that we hate you, we're at war with you. If you're at war with the Ahlul Bayt, we're going to war with you too. Right? The ziyarat, these du'as, they don't mince words. They're very, very clear about this. Then you go into, okay, well, where are these qualities mentioned? So this last line of the party of Shaitan being the losers, this was Surah Mujadila, right? Surah 58, Ayah 19. A few ayat later, in Ayah 22, the longer one, this is where some of the qualities of the parties are mentioned there. And we'll go through that and then end, if you can recite a Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, out of consideration of time, I'm going to skip the Arabic. So I'm just going to read the English here, right? You will not find a people who believe in Allah and the last day having affection for those who oppose Allah and His Messenger, even if they were their fathers or their sons or their brothers or their kindred. Right away, this first thing that's called out in this ayah about one of the qualities of those who are part of the party of Shaitan is that, look, if your tribesmen, if your family members, if there are people who are openly against Allah and His Messenger, you can't have room in your heart for them. They're not going to have any sort of love there, right? And the verb that's used here is yawaddun, mawadda. You can't have mawadda for people like that. But nowadays you see that many individuals, they've opened their hearts to people who are, because they might support us on certain things, like, they're helping us, they tolerate us, we have to tolerate them too. Oh, if these are people who are against the principles of Allah, Rasulullah, and the Ahlul Bayt, then we have to kind of call a spade a spade. We have to know where the lines are here, right? I'm not saying just go out and saying, we hate you, we hate you. No, that's not the idea. But in our hearts, we can't have affection towards individuals like that, because their conception of reality, what they think is good for mankind, is completely different than you and I. They're going in a completely different direction. They're not on the same page as us, and they're never going to be, because their conception of reality is completely different. The ayah continues. Again, so remember, this is what was happening with that first group of Kufans. Even though they believed in Allah and His Messenger, they believed in all that, but because of what happened between Imam Ali alayhi salam and their forefathers and their fathers, that hatred built in them. And that you see where it led them to. Rather, they were in a quote-unquote Islamic army, but their hatred had developed for somebody like Imam Ali. Imagine Muslims at that time, there's nobody who can deny the fadail of Ali. It's impossible. Okay, over here now, maybe you can make excuses, right? They're like, okay, maybe people don't know all of the ayat which came about Imam Ali. Maybe they don't know all of the hadith because their scholars are hiding it from them. Okay, maybe we can make that excuse. But those Muslims who were there during the time, who were there pre-Ghadir, at Ghadir, post-Ghadir, nobody denied those fadail. Even Muawiyah himself, he's like, I can't deny these fadail. I know that they're there. Nobody denied that. But that ego, that hatred overtook everything else. So when that happens, whatever Islam these people thought that they had was gone. There was no Islam left in them. Right? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The ayah continues, He has decreed within their hearts faith and supported them with spirit from Him, and we will admit them to gardens beneath which rivers flow, wherein they abide eternally. Allah is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Him. Those are the party of Allah. So there's two sort of groups that are mentioned over here now, right? The people who have belief in Allah and Rasulullah, they're like, okay, anybody who's in line with that idea, that's where we have our real love for. These are the people that we support, that we will do everything for. Blood, sweat, and tears, we'll do anything for those individuals. If not, then you're not going to find an ounce of real, true love. Now look, there's different degrees of love. Mawadda is something very, very specific, where we don't have time to talk about in depth what that means. But us as Shias, we know what mawaddat, right, should mean, I think, right? We should expect what that concept means. We can have a general love for all of mankind, for every other person. Yeah, you can have that. But look, in Islam, we believe in hierarchy. When somebody is a fellow lover of the Ahlul Bayt, they should be at the top of the list when it comes to our love and affection for them, right? If somebody has love, maybe not for the Ahlul Bayt in the way that you and I do, but they have a belief in Allah and Rasulullah and the Quran, that maybe their understanding of the Ahlul Bayt is not the same way, okay, well, fine, you're in position number 2, no problem, fine, that's okay. But everybody else, maybe they're Ahlul Kitab, okay, cool, that's good, that you're on the right path, you're almost there. Right? We have this hierarchy that's there. And you see that as you look at other people now, the people who are farther and farther away from these ideas, who have completely kind of switched perspectives and now just don't believe in any truth, these individuals, sometimes they might support us, right, in things that we want, right? They might come out and say, this Muslim ban, this travel ban is not good. Like, look, if you want to go and do that, that's fine. But don't come back to us when you have a certain ideology or a certain piece of legislation that you want passed, because we can't support things like that. Right? This is what I hear a lot of people say. It's like, well, they helped us, so we have to help them. Like, no, that's not the way it works. Right? This is the same thing that Imam Ali, alayhi salatu wassalam, he had recognized right after Saqifa, right? When Abu Sufyan came and said, hey, I see what's going on over here. I can supply you an army. I can give you supporters. You could take back your khilafah. He says, why would I ever ally or take support from somebody like you? I know what your ideas are about Allah. I know your ideas about Rasulullah. If I take your support now, I know you're going to come back for a favor later. We don't take support from people like you, right? We don't need support from people like that. We don't need to owe anybody else favors. We need something done, we'll get it done ourselves. That's no problem. And that's something that we have to see that hopefully we can start working on, especially in this country, right? As trying to be a bit more independent and self-sufficient. We shouldn't have to rely on other people's handouts and their support, whether politically, economically, whatever it is. We should be able to take care of ourselves, right? Like a real Shia community. And I think, inshallah, hopefully when we strengthen that, we'll have that idea. So that these other issues that took place in Kufa, right? We talked about how before, one of the main issues that Ibn Ziyad was able to capitalize on was the fact that because they were so splintered, they weren't helping each other out financially. Ibn Ziyad capitalized on that and was able to bribe them like that. If, for example, the Dajjal or somebody comes right now and tries to bribe us to change our minds, some people, it's possible, I don't know, maybe even me, might say, look, I need the money right now, I can't say no. It's my family, I have to feed my family, right? We might get to that point. The same way the people of Kufa, they rationalized it too. I have to support my family, what can I do? Right? It's my wajib duty. So we want to make sure that we're never in that sort of stage ourselves. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So that is it. After this, if you remember, she recited some lines of poetry, which you can go back and listen to if you want, or if you want the actual lines, I can send them to you, but I'm not going to go through those lines. But I want to conclude here, just kind of re-summarize all the different points that were mentioned. We saw how Kulthum started in this sort of, just jumped right into it, very powerful, very emotional, went straight to the hearts of the Ahl Kufa, and just said, look what you've done. What is the matter with you? Shame on you. You might as well be destroyed. There is no mercy in your hearts. How could you kill somebody like this? Right? She jumped in right into it. She went from that, slowly transitioned to talking and getting them to remind themselves about their love for Rasulullah. And then, before going into poetry, she remembers and has them remember these ayat of the Quran, so that they could remember, hey, these are the qualities that we believed in initially when we became Muslims. Why did we abandon them when Muslim ibn Aqil came? Or when Hussein needed us in Kufa? Why did we abandon them? So perhaps she's trying to wake them up so that when a inqilab, when some harakat, when some movement does happen in Kufa a little bit later on, whether it's Mukhtar, whether it's Tawabin, whether it's something else, then maybe they're like, you know what? That stubbornness, that spiritual defect that's in me, I have to break out of this. I need to go and support whatever movement's there to try to get the Ahlul Bayt back in power. We can't let the family of Rasulullah be treated like this. We can't let the people like the Umayyads run our lives anymore. Or even if it's not Banu Umayyah, anybody that comes in, we have to do something about them. We can't let these villainous individuals who claim Islam, they just put on Islam like a coat, we can't let them put that on and us be tricked and fall for these basic tricks. Right? We can't allow that to happen anymore. And we see that along with that movement, along with these khutbahs, along with the continued efforts of the Ahlul Bayt after that, especially of Imam Sajjad, as you go forward and forward, some of them do change. A good amount of them start to, support some of these movements afterwards. So we see that this movement did have, these khutbahs, especially something like this, did have an effect. And probably more importantly, it's because she was able to have them not just say that, blame Banu Umayyah for this, blame Ibn Ziyad for this, blame Shimr and all this. No, blame yourselves. Blame your own nafs. That's why she had them bawling and crying in the streets for this. So look, this was your own spiritual defect that led to this. You claimed Islam, but you were the party of shaitan. And although the word she's using is that there's no rahmah in your hearts anymore, it's been removed. Perhaps if somebody maybe there sincerely repented, did tawbah, only Allah knows, that maybe these were the individuals who might have been forgiven, or might have changed their lives and done something else to support the cause of the Ahlul Bayt. Khair, only Allah knows something like that. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now we bring our hearts to Sham, as the family, the captives, the women, the children have been there in the palace, in the prison of Yazid for days, as they've had to endure this torturous, demeaning behavior in front of all of these individuals in Sham. Out of all of this, and tonight as we commemorate, on Ashura, we had thought that the talk of Shahadat had ended, right? All of the men had gone out and become Shaheed, whether young or old. Even Al-Yaskar becomes Shaheed there. But the Shahadat don't end until we come to the Zindan in Sham. This is that final Shahadat that we close this sort of chapter on. Imagine, already it was difficult for the men that were left, the women that were left, those who may have had brothers, those few who may have left their children in Karbala. They had maybe thought that, the shahadat, the death is finished. Now it's just us dealing with this grief, this pain, this torture, and this azab. Now that's all that's left. But most of them didn't know what was about to come to them on these nights in Sham. One historian reports that on the fourth day, while they were there, this young daughter of Hussein narrates herself, and that they say, she says, I had a dream that night. She said, in that dream, I saw a lady sitting on a camel, and this lady had her hand placed on her head. I went to this lady, I asked the people and the angels that were around, who is this lady that has her hand on her head? And they said, Fatima, hadahi Fatima, bint Muhammad. This is your grandmother Fatima. And this daughter of Hussein says, Wallah, I have to go tell her and tell her what's happened to us. I want to go tell her and share her the story and the tragedy of what has happened to all of us. So she narrates herself, I ran towards Fatima. I caught up with her. I stood before her. She said, I started crying. In tears, I said, Amma, Wallah, do you know that the haqq that they violated of us, do you know that the dhulm that they've done to us? Amma, Wallah, I swear to you, they've destroyed our group. The haram that was once here, that came from Medina, has been wiped out. Look at all of us who are left now. Ya Amma, do you know what they've done to the women over here? Amma, do you know that they've killed my father Hussein? And they say that Fatima responded to her. She says, hold your tongue, hold your words, Ya Sakina. Hold your tongue, because whenever you say these things, they cut my heart into pieces. pieces. They burn my insides. This is the shirt of Hussein which I've been holding the whole time, and I will not let this go until I meet Allah. And they say that on this morning when she woke up from this dream, she began crying and saying, Baba, Baba, where are you? Come back to me. And in the middle of the night, Yazid heard these cries and asked, what is going on over there? And he said that these are the cries of this young daughter of Hussein, whose head you have over here. You have the head of Hussein, and she's crying for her father. He says, fine, prepare that head and send it back to her so that she stops this crying so that I can sleep. So they take a tray, they put the head of Hussein on the tray, they put a cloth over it, they come to Sakina, they present her with the tray. She says, what is this? She says, Hada ra'sul abik, this is the head of your father. Sakina takes the cloth and removes it. She says, Baba, Baba, I've been looking all over for you. She takes the head of Hussein and begins kissing it. She says, Baba, do you know that I couldn't sleep without you? Baba, why did they slaughter you like this? Baba, who decapitated you like this? Baba, who treated you like this? Baba, do you know what they did to all the women? Baba, do you know what they did to your brothers? Baba, do you know what they did to the children? Baba, have you been watching everything that's happened? Baba, did you see what happened when we went from Karbala to Kufa? Every time when I was trying to go to my brother Imam Sajjad, what they would do to me, Baba, have you seen that? Baba, did you know I saw Fatima in my dreams? Do you know this, Baba? Where have you been? When she woke up and she cried that way in sleep, when the women came to her, they tried to wake her up in that stage. Imam Sajjad came and tried to wake her up and said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. My young sister has joined my father in Jannah. When they were ready to perform the ghusl of this young daughter, when they had tried to remove her clothes to perform the ghusl for her, they said they weren't able to pull off the clothes properly because they started to see the bruises on her skin. They said that because of the bruises, they were never cleaned up. The clothing was stuck to the skin of Sakina. When finally they were allowed to go and leave Sham. When Yazid said, go, return back to Medina, Rabab says, how can I leave a place like this? I left my Asghar in Karbala. I'm leaving my Sakina in Sham, in the prisons of Sham. What do I have left for me in Medina? ألا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. ماتم حسين.
दुखते हैं मेरे कान सुला दो मुझे भैया सुला दो मुझे भैया तुम माँ की तरह भैया तुम माँ की तरह लोरी सुना दो मुझे भैया दुखते हैं मेरे कान सुला दो मुझे भैया सुला दो मुझे भैया हाय दुखते हैं मेरे कान सुला दो मुझे भैया सुला दो मुझे भैया हाय दुखते हैं मेरे कान सुला दो मुझे भैया सुला दो मुझे भैया हाय दुखते हैं मेरे कान सुला दो मुझे भैया सुला दो मुझे भैया तुम माँ की तरह भैया तुम माँ की तरह लोरी सुना दो मुझे भैया दुखते हैं मेरे कान सुला दो मुझे भैया सुला दो मुझे भैया हाय दुखते हैं मेरे कान सुला दो मुझे भैया सुला दो मुझे भैया لگتا ہے اندھیرے سے ڈر تیری سکینہ کو، لگتا ہے اندھیرے سے ڈر تیری سکینہ کو، تم سر میرے بابا کا، تم سر میرے بابا کا دلا دو مجھے بھیا، دکھتے ہیں میرے کان، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، ہائے دکھتے ہیں میرے کان، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، دیکھا ہے ان آنکھوں نے بابا کا گلا کٹتے، دیکھا ہے ان آنکھوں نے بابا کا گلا کٹتے، بھولوں گی بلا کیسے، بھولوں گی بلا کیسے، بتا دو مجھے بھیا، دکھتے ہیں میرے کان، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، دکھتے ہیں میرے کان، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، میں ساتھ محرم سے پیاسی ہوں میرے بھیا، میں ساتھ محرم سے پیاسی ہوں میرے بھیا، دو بوند اگر پانی، دو بوند اگر پانی پلا دو مجھے بھیا، دکھتے ہیں میرے کام، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، میں ساتھ محرم سے پیاسی ہوں میرے بھیا، میں ساتھ محرم سے پیاسی ہوں میرے بھیا، دو بوند اگر پانی، دو بوند اگر پانی پلا دو مجھے بھیا، دکھتے ہیں میرے کان، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، ہائے دکھتے ہیں میرے کان، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، بھیا میرے کانوں سے اب تک ہے لہو جاری، بھیا میرے کانوں سے اب تک ہے لہو جاری، تم آ کے ذرا مرہم، تم آ کے ذرا مرہم لگا دو مجھے بھیا، دکھتے ہیں میرے کان، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، ہائے دکھتے ہیں میرے کان، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، کرتا ہے ستم ظالم سونے بھی نہیں دیتا، کرتا ہے ستم ظالم سونے بھی نہیں دیتا، آگوش امامت میں، آگوش امامت میں چھپا لو مجھے بھیا، دکھتے ہیں میرے کان، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، ہائے دکھتے ہیں میرے کان، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سلا دو مجھے بھیا، سجاد سے سکینہ روتی یہ یہ فضل بولی سجاد سے سکینہ روتے یہ فضل بولی چہرہ میرے اصغر کا چہرہ میرے اصغر کا دکھا دو مجھے بھیا دکھتے ہیں میرے کان سلا دو مجھے بھیا سلا دو مجھے بھیا ہائے دکھتے ہیں میرے کان سلا دو مجھے بھیا سلا دو مجھے بھیا ہائے دکھتے ہیں میرے کان سلا دو مجھے بھیا سلا دو مجھے بھیا یا حسین 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 جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے پکارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا مجھے بالوں سے پکڑ کر ہے تماچے مارے مجھے بالوں سے پکڑ کر ہے تماچے مارے میں نے سر شمر سے مانگا جو تمہارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا وہ جو در اپنے تحفے میں مجھے بخشے تھے وہ جو در اپنے تحفے میں مجھے بخشے تھے ان کو بے دردی سے ظالم نے اتارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا آپ کے سینے پہ آرام سے سونے والی آپ کے سینے پہ آرام سے سونے والی سو کے اب خاک پہ کرتی ہے گزارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا نوک نیزہ پہ اسے دیکھوں تو دیکھوں کیسے نوک نیزہ پہ اسے دیکھوں تو دیکھوں کیسے میرا اصغر کیا مجھے جان سے بھی پیارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ आपके कातिल ने है मारा बाबा, मुझे आपके कातिल ने है मारा बाबा। मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूल अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या अमीर अल-मुअमिनीन अली इब्न अबी तालिब, अस्सलामु अलैकी या फ़ातिमत अज़-ज़हरा सय्यदती निसाइल आलमीन, अस्सलामु अलैका या हसन अल-मुज्तबा, अस्सलामु अलैका या हुसैन शहीद बिकरबला, अस्सलामु अलैका या अली ज़ैन अल-आबिदीन, अस्सलामु अलैका या मुहम्मद अल-बाकिर, अस्सलामु अलैका या जाफ़र अस-सादिक, अस्सलामु अलैका या मूसा अल-काज़िम, अस्सलामु अलैका या अली अर-रिदा, अस्सलामु अलैका या मुहम्मद अत-तकी अल-जवाद, अस्सलामु अलैका या अली अन-नकी अल-हादी, अस्सलामु अलैका या हसन अल-अस्करी, अस्सलामु अलैका या मौलाना या साहिबुल अस्र वज़्ज़मान, अल-अमान अल-अमान अल-अमान, अस्सलामु अलैका या खलीफतुर रहमान, अस्सलामु अलैका या शरीक अल-कुरआन, अस्सलामु अलैका या काबतल ईमान, अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अल्लाहुम्मा कुल्ली वलीका सलावातुका अलैहि व अला आबाई फ़ी हाज़िहि साअति व फ़ी कुल्ली साअ वलियान व हाफ़िज़ान व काइदान व नासिरान व दलीलान व अईना हत्ता तुस्किनहु अर्ज़क़ा तौआ व तुमत्तिअहु फ़ीहा तवीला।